All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Andy. It's a real pleasure to have you with us.
It's great to see you, Michael. We're old buds. We were trying to figure out the last time I was in Plymouth, so let's say it's been at least 5 years since we've been in person together. But we've been in touch online, and it's always good to hear of your further adventures and successes. So very proud of your path, man.
Ah, thank you so much. That means so much to me.
Yeah, man.
So I'm lost for words now after hearing that.
No,
Well, I've been
seriously, it's like
following you for as long as I've been holding the guitar, so it's always a pleasure to talk
wow.
to you and to learn more about the wonders that make up the incredible music that you write.
Thank
Well,
you, man.
actually, on that subject, I was wondering,
Yeah.
how do you approach songwriting? How much music do you write that doesn't make it onto albums?
That's a great question. And sadly, there's how many cassettes and voice memos of unfinished snippets of music will die with me. But um, no, it's every day is an adventure. I'm always working on things that I've already been developing, and then but the chances are there's going to be something new that'll come up each day. First thing every morning, I grab this. Necessary substance, which is just a coffee. Hello, I'll have some now. Oh, I'm extra inspired. No, I just grab my coffee and go with my guitar to my office first thing every day. Um, Multiple reasons. Well, one, it just that's what sets up my day for a better day. If I just get that time in on my instrument, whether it's actually practicing certain things or just playing, it could be working on pieces that I've been working on, or maybe just working on some exercises, or just even soloing over jazz changes to iReal. But it's also a time that I tend to a lot of fresh music comes early in the day when your brain isn't nearly as switched on and things just kind of happen. You know what I'm saying? Fingers just go the way they go on the guitar. And that's where some ideas do come from. But it's not necessarily reserved to that. It could be driving down the road in the car and I hear a melody in my head. Or even I've had a couple of tunes come when like shopping with the wife at a clothing store, and she's off, looking at stuff, and then there's like this vibey little trance music in the back, and I'm always singing melodies. I'm always, even if it's a proper tune with a vocalist or whatever, chances are I might be singing counter melodies. I'm always exercising that improvisational thing, and a written piece of music is improvisation. The best line I heard was from Bill Evans, the great jazz pianist, when he was talking to his brother about the process of jazz. And composition is let's just say soloing is a minute's music in a minute's time, meaning it's happening right now. That's it. But a minute's music of composition could take a year. You might spend that year on it. But it's the same thing that drives us. It's that same melodic or harmonic intuition that when you're in the moment of playing a solo, you're trying to create the greatest, music you can in that moment. And it's the same with songwriting. It's really the same thing that drives those two things. I think it's really identical. So it was cool to hear Bill Evans speak to it like that. Um, all that to say is, yeah, there's always inspiration. A lot of times I write music based very specifically on things happening in the world or people around me or myself personally, what I'm feeling. I tend to be driven by that. But sometimes music is just music and notes sound cool together, and that's valid, and I develop those as well. I know this is a lengthy answer to your simple question. The answer is yes, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of snippets of music that I may never get around to, or of course there won't be enough time. But you just have to kind of choose the ones that, oh, that's something special, or there's something about it that I want to keep playing. Those are the ones that get developed. Something that really has something in it that I need. I think as a writer and an artist, we have to start there. For anybody interested in actual art, meaning that there can be disposable music. You could be writing for, commercials or whatever it might be. But I'm really wanting to write something that means something to me, and then in hopes of it meaning something to other people. But it has to start with you. It has to be authentic, on your
That's
end. That's the goal.
that's a really good point. Do you feel that sometimes when you're writing, that the ideas that really stand out to you, that have extra special value to them, are musical ideas that both feel good to play as well as sound
Mm.
good?
Yeah, I think there's moments like that I spend a great deal of time, once I've written a piece or a melody, I'll then constantly for days work on, is there a better way to play it? You know, I could play like, oh, what's the piece I'm working on now? There's just this 5 chord going to a minor, you know, 1. But of course I want to hear, yeah, that feels good. But it also, to me, has a much more emotional depth than, nothing wrong with that. That's a beautiful cadence. It's so common. It's a very simple explanation and fragment, but that gets to the heart of, boy, yeah, that I like it to feel good on the instrument, because that may be part of how, you know, I express it in a more emotional way. But it's not driven by, oh, how does it feel on the instrument? But I'm just realizing, well, it does feel good. I can't deny that. But I never thought of it like that. That's a cool question. So, but yeah, it's nice when it actually is fun physically to play. But obviously, the end goal is what it's doing orally, you know.
Brilliant. And I guess it's like when you add more humanism to music, it seems to add more value to the music. And I think, like, when you did the slide up there, that slide just makes it sound and feel that extra bit special, as opposed to just, you know, going down a string.
And well, that's it. And that's the thing about the guitar, and how I feel, or just kind of scratching the surface, because there's so many ways of landing a note. You know, I got to, you know, that time I slid up, instead of with my my middle finger, which was nice because I'm going to go down to the index finger there for the root. But what if I slid up with my ring finger and then bent a half step from the C to, oh, I'm sorry, the C to the C sharp or D flat, or I could have bent from the B flat to the D. You know, these are the things that I really, I don't want to say agonize, but I labor over, really finding moments to get as much out of that note that I can, you know, just to see what's possible, you know. And it's just fun. It's fun.
In a world where there's like, you know, a lot of very fast guitar players playing very fast, skating sounding things, I think,
yeah.
Do you feel that that's part of what makes your playing sound so vocal-like? Is that you're speaking, so it's true improvising, but you're also you're looking for more human and interesting ways to play the notes, or to say what you want to say, as opposed to just playing in the scalar manner.
Yeah, but it all works together. It all can be great music. You know, I don't disparage people that have that technical ability, because I'm a fan of it. I love to play the more dexterous stuff. I'm not nearly as good at it as a lot of other people, and wish I had a bit more of that in my quiver, you know. But that to say, it's the players that I'm drawn to, that may not be the focus of their music. You know, it's the ones that really, you know, when they land the note, or they, you know, play something slower where things really can be special and emotive, you know. But it's good. You need that light and dark. You need the balance of, you need the energy sometimes of the more notey, scalar things, and I love that. I mean, Chopin is like the textbook of how that can work. You know, if you ever delve into some of his work, he's the one that I relate to the most of anybody. If you want to call it classical music, it's the early Romantic period for Chopin in the early to mid 1800s, and that was just, it's kind of a sweet spot for me, you know, where, boy, he just seems to know how to get to the heart of something really emotional. But then it's some of the most challenging stuff in the piano, you know, piano works. His etudes are just insane, you know. And I listen to that stuff and just absolutely love it. I could never attempt to play it, though maybe I will someday. I have worked up to etude number 3, which is the real sweet thing in the E major. It's a real common theme. You've seen it in, you know, half a dozen movies, but the middle section gets, you know, his people joke chopping. He's Chopin. There's a lot of chops involved. But I have figured it out. I can't quite play it the way I want to yet. But I love that the contrast, the ability to have that gear if in fact if the music calls for it and you need it.
And you know, if you could go back, if you had the ability to click your fingers and you could go back in time, and you know, today Andy could go back and give past Andy, you know, 14 years old with his guitar practicing, and then you appear there. What advice would you give young Andy in terms of music business advice for his future?
Ooh, music business. Well, the 14-year-old Andy, it was a completely different landscape. You know, I was growing up in a relatively small town in the Midwest in Evansville, Indiana. You know, and there was not even an awareness of a music business. It just seemed like fairy tale land. You know, my goals were just to get in a band and play locally. And I was at 13, I guess I got my first band. And then from that age, I've never not been in a band. There's always been, I've had active, you know, bands, you know, to get out and play. So I was very fortunate in that way that I got into a band with older players and we were always gigging. You know, there's regular stuff going on. So that's how I learned. I guess the main thing I would, you know, implore my younger self is just to really listen to the two teachers that I had at the time. When I was 16, I started taking private lessons from a guy named Ron Pritchett, who he was teaching me how to I was learning how to read, you know, because by that time I knew that my life was going to be as a musician. I thought, well, I better learn how to read in case I could be a studio musician, because I was reading, you know, Guitar Player magazine with Tommy Tedesco about all the session guys, right? And then, but he was a great jazz player, so you know he kind of started turning me on to that world of Joe Pass and Barney Kessel and some of the, you know, bebop guys. And I was just marveling, how do I ever figure out what notes to play? He says, well, just learn the arpeggios, learn the notes to chord. And you know, 30 years later, I'm working on that. It's like that would have been a handy thing had I really, really taken that to heart. I mean, what he gave me, I learned immense amounts, and we were learning all the jazz standards and learning my voicings and learning how to improvise along the way. Then I studied classical guitar my first 2 years of college at the University of Evansville with a guy named Renato Buteri, who's a native of Milan, Italy. He's a wonderful guy, you know, very worldly guy, you know, literally and just philosophically, you know, I learned a lot just from being around him. He just had so much worldly knowledge, you know. It's, again, kind of a narrow bubble in the small town. But just things about music, and I did learn a lot from him, just about really listening and how to bring out a melody in classical places. I didn't practice nearly like I should have, because I was still taking jazz lessons. I was a local rock star at that point in my local band, and we were playing 3 nights a week, and you know, I was all over the place. But the beauty of it is that I was totally immersed, you know, and even though I wasn't a dedicated, specific practicer, I was always playing. And that may have benefited me in some ways, you know, by it all being mostly ear, though I was getting some theory along the way. And then eventually did study a lot of theory in Miami when I went there. But it was really just about gigging and learning tunes. But I think that, I would just say, you know, really get into and just work a little harder, young Andrew. But then I think there's other times, we're talking about, your original question was about the music business, I know. But again, that was such a lofty, I thought, you know, it's like winning the lottery, that's impossible. But then, you know, I just kind of kept doing what I was doing. Then I ended up, you know, in Miami for a couple of years. I was in Texas, and then ended up in Danger in the late 80s up in New York. And that was my music business 101. But I guess the other advice would be just like, you know, just learn about accounting, learn about, you know, how to be better about asking for what you're worth. You know, I've just never been a good negotiator. I kind of trust everybody's going to treat me fairly because I'm a good guy. How's that worked out? Well, it does work in a lot of ways. There's nothing wrong with being a good person, but at the same time, you do need to get savvy with the business stuff. And I mean, but now all that to say, it's completely a different landscape now. You know, especially with with all the internet stuff, which none of that was around when I was growing up. And now everybody has access and a platform of getting their music out on the internet, you know, through the social media or from whatever forms that are out there like that. So it's kind of beautiful in that everybody has a chance. You know, I was a kid in a band it was a good band, and I was sending out tapes when I was in my mid to late teens, sending out tapes to record labels and getting feedback like, yeah, man, keep us posted. You guys are sounding good. but nobody else in the band was quite as driven and as dedicated. But again, but now, I always talk about Andy McKee just because he's a guy that I love his playing. But he rose at the early stages of when YouTube was a thing and how people were sharing videos, and he was just sitting in his bedroom. I forget if it was Little Rock or Tulsa or somewhere, but he truly has something beautiful to offer. Had he grown up in the 70s or even 80s, we may never have heard of him, because he might have just been, oh, well, I'm stuck in my town. But as I traveled early on in my career, especially internationally, you start to realize, man, there's amazing players everywhere. And now we know that with the internet, because they're all in their bedrooms or wherever playing this incredible stuff. And so at the end of the day, though, it's a matter of then what's the real point? Do you want to produce 60-second videos of flashy stuff, or are you wanting to make music? And I don't know if there's a right or wrong there. It's just, I'm an older guy, so I do love music. I love a piece of music. I love the art of the song and the art of the melody. And yes, I love the art of the instrument. I'm still in love with the guitar more and more all the time. I'm still inspired. First thing I want to do every day is play and just try to get better, So yeah, be aware of the yeah.
That's a really good point, because I think so many people fall out of love with their instrument or what they do because they view it too much in a business light, as opposed to remembering why they learned to play it in the first place, and that passion, reigniting that and keeping that going. And I think that's a really, really good point, because I think sometimes we do get too bogged down with, I need to do a social media post, I need to, I don't know, learn the next biggest lick in the guitar magazine or something, but it's about the music, isn't it? It's about what are you going to say with your instrument. You mentioned social media, and I think, like you said, the landscape of this world has changed quite a lot. And how do you feel about social media? How important is it today, do you think, for up and coming musicians?
Well, like I said in the previous segment, it's a matter of, it is so great on so many levels that everybody kind of has the same chance. That, if you really have something to offer, you've worked hard and you've got, this ability, or, whether it's actually writing music or just the fact that you can play your instrument well, it's really quite phenomenal that, people can find you, if you really, and people will share it. If there's really something there that people are drawn to, whatever it might be, I think it's incredible. So, but there's so many levels to this, and it's an emotional thing because, I've even caught myself where there's the addiction part of it, where, you feel like, oh, every spare second, I better check all my platforms and my emails. And like, I was standing in line at the post office a couple of days ago. Oh, I have to wait 90 seconds. There I am trying. So I did a test a couple of days ago just to see if I could go through a couple of days with just really not checking in. And it was interesting because I did feel better, and that's just the psychological, emotional part of, is this making me feel better? Is this making me not feel as good? What is that? Seeing all this onslaught of information, be it news or other musicians being creative. There's part of me that honestly feels like, if I'm not posting on somewhat of a regular basis, do I exist? And that's a heavy thing, Of course I exist, but it's like because you see somebody, and the ones that are really prolific, if you follow some folks that are like every day, and it's like, oh God, they're amazing. This is it's easy to feel like, oh God, I'm not doing, I should be. It's a thing I struggle with my whole life. It's like, comparing yourself to others, and that's such a dangerous thing. I've often said that it wasn't until I was like, and I'm 59 now, when I got to be about 50, I started feeling slightly comfortable with being myself as just as a player, and maybe as a human being too. That's part of it. There could be, that insecurity thing that I think that if everybody's being honest, they can't help but feel that. No matter what level of playing you may be on, there's going to be, hundreds, if not thousands of players that make you go, oh shit, I'm a beginner. So There's that level to it. But I think again, if you can keep a healthy mindset about it and not and be inspired and not discouraged, then it is a great thing. And I, even before social media, when YouTube was getting out there, and it was a scary thing because people were starting to film your gigs. And you go, oh gosh, I hope I don't suck, because then people have this wrong impression. I mean, it became a real kind of a mind f, so to speak, in that you're paranoid about it. But after a certain point, it's like there was so much stuff that people had posted, and I was never militant about, you got to take that video down. That's my intellectual property, which there's an argument for that. But I think I have a lot of my career to thank for it. Had it not been for the live version of Cry For You from the Hoshino 90th anniversary that got leaked, by somebody, it wasn't me. I didn't put it up there, but that original post has millions of views. I reposted it years later, and mine's got millions of views. That's how a lot of people discovered me jamming with Vi and Gilbert that night. So like I was saying, if you have something to offer, somebody happened to post a video before I was anywhere near proactive trying to get some of that out there, and it kind of took care of itself. I had nothing to do with it except that that night I played the best of my ability, and any gig, I'm trying to do that. And then other people kind of did the work because they liked what I did, so I'm obviously humbled by that and honored by that. So I will never disparage the internet. It's like, because it's such a valuable thing, and I know I have a lot to thank for it, but it's got to have a balance. You got to find it for yourself.
Well, that video is how I discovered you, that exact one.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, wow, who is this guy, and why haven't I heard of him before? And then at that point, It became an obsession. I was like, I need to hear more of this. And I discovered your first, second, and third record. And I was like, hey, this guy's got loads of music out. How come I didn't know who he is? It just goes to show the power of social media, doesn't it? And how quickly that can spread.
Yeah. No, I'm very honored, and I still I'll see comments, either online or people send me emails. It's like, how haven't I heard of you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm doing the best I can, but I'm not the name that some of the heavy hitters, we talk about Satch and Vi and Paul Gilbert. It's just the way the career's gone. But boy, I'm not in any way, sad about where I am. I'm happy that people, if I come across their playlist or whatever, and they hadn't heard of me, if they want to stick around, that's phenomenal. So I'm quite pleased, but I keep working. I don't take any of it for granted. I keep working really hard and just really want to continue to get better as a player, but really as a writer. That's as much as I love to better my playing. Boy, I really want to write a great song.
I was thinking about this for a while. You've accomplished many great things. Number one, I would say on the top of that list is just really good albums, like complete albums that you need to listen to from start to finish. And I mean, my all-time favorite album is Resolution, and I still play that all the time in the car.
Wow.
It's still my favorite recorded guitar tone I've ever heard.
Thank you.
It's just something about that sound. But all of these accomplishments that you've made, and I mean, you've gotten a lot of respect from the people who you looked up to when you began.
Yeah.
What does success look like for you now? What are your musical goals at this point in time?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. It's again, sharing the stage with all of these heroes along the way, and when I get a kind word from some of the guys that I've that they're the reason that I play the way I do. That is success to me. That even just the approval of my older brothers. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, you just want a little nod of approval from those that you really admire and look up to. But it's funny that every day is a new day, and it's kind of like, well, none of that really matters. I have to honor whatever gift I have and whatever I've built as a player, as a writer, and a human being. I have to do better today. I think that's the general thing that keeps me going. And so success, this is another thing too. I think success is happiness. And I'd gone through so much of my career up until maybe it was my late 40s. And a lot of great things had happened. I'd had, some big gigs. I'd done lots of touring and some recording. And but I kept feeling that there was something missing, or that I wasn't that happy. And through a fluke of situations, I ended up getting back into a dedicated practice routine. There was this camp that Pat Metheny was going to do, and I wanted to take part in it. I was like, man, my God, this is one of my biggest heroes. But then I was like, immediately like, oh shoot, I'm not where I need to be. As my jazz playing I hadn't kept it up. I hadn't practiced it. I thought, well, if I'm going to sit in front of my hero, I better really get this together. The PS is that, the camp actually never happened. There's some things went poorly with the promoter, whatever happened. But it was just that thought of, hey, I'm gonna be in a room with Pat Metheny. How am I playing? And I'm like, oh boy, I'm not where I need to be or where I should be. And so, without the knowledge that it wasn't going to happen, I started the daily practice routine. Like maybe I thought when I was in Miami, I was in school all day with some of the greatest players and faculty, and I was gigging 6 nights a week. And when that wasn't happening, I was like, hey man, what are you doing? Let's go sit and play some standards for an hour. So I found a local buddy of mine that plays jazz, Nick Knurk. We just started getting together every week and working on a different tune every week. And it was really hard to hear myself suck so bad, because at one point I was maybe navigating those changes better. And jazz is a huge influence on my playing overall. My concept of voice leading comes a lot from that. But through that process, a month, 2 months go by, I'm like, all right, you start to notice that improvement, right? And and again, months go by, then I find out the camp's not happening and something had gone awry. But I realized through that period of time, I was a much happier person. And it's the phrase that I used earlier, because I knew I was honoring whatever gift I have, whether natural ability has to do with how people get to the level of playing they get to. There may be some of that, but it's a lot of years of hard work and just dedication. But I realized this is it. That's when I'm at my happiest. When I'm every day making sure I take that time to play the instrument that I love so much. And so that on that level, you're building up your abilities to where you're not letting yourself down. Because that was happening to me a lot. I'd be on a gig and go, oh man, I suck. Or on a session, oh man, I suck. I say that a bit less now, because I'm really, it still happens. People have good nights and bad nights. That's always going to be, because we're human beings. But if you're really putting the time in, and that's really where I discovered that's my happy place, man. And there's sometimes I had the thought of like, I love gigs, I love recording, I love all of it, but I don't think I love it as much as when I'm just in my office first thing in the morning and I'm playing. It's the most natural thing for me, and it just made my life a lot better. So that, to me, to honor that and to realize that's why we're here. That's why you and I are talking. We love this instrument. We love music. It's just trying to never let lose sight of that.
I think that's a really good answer, because it leans more into the idea of success is in contentment, and that contentment gives you this inner peace, this inner happiness that nothing else can really give you, isn't it? And music is a great healer, and especially when you're playing it yourself. I was just thinking, because we always play our best when no one's around. There's no pressure. You're just playing.
That's right.
I would love to just be a fly in the wall when you're practicing, to hear how ridiculously good you are when no one's around.
There's good moments and there's moments that aren't so good, but that's like, so no, contentment is a different word than happiness. Contentment means I'm okay, I'm fine, and that's good. But I think I don't want to promote the idea that I'm happy where I'm at, because part of the human condition, at least for me as an artist, is like, okay, it's my happy place, but I got a lot more to do. So that's another part of the equation. It's not like happy place, I don't have to do anything. It's a part of the bigger picture of, no man, I gotta make, I'm glad you dig Resolution, but man, I got records to make, and I'm hoping that you dig them too. So people will say, I love that version of Cry for You. So I've played it thousands of times since. Yeah, but that version, and that's true, and it's a special night, and it was. I only rehearsed it with Simon 2 times before that performance. So it was fresh. It was fresh with Simon and the band. So there's a special thing about it. But as much as somebody might compliment the past, I'm I want to have that in the future. And see where I can improve upon, or at least live up to other people's expectations. But it has to start with me. I'm trying to I'm trying to play and write what I want to hear, and then hope that other people resonate with that.
That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess I guess you could apply contentment to the journey that you're on, and
There you go.
it's an ever growing journey, and yeah, it's always exciting when I see, oh, Andy's dropped a new album, because you just never know what you're gonna get, but you do know that you're always gonna get amazing guitar tone every single time.
I hope so.
You knew you were gonna get the tone compliments, but you always do. You're known in the guitar community as the guy with the best tone.
There's no best, but I'm so humbled by that. Yeah. What's that?
Does being known as the guy with the greatest guitar tone, does that give you some sort of pressure when you perform or when you record? You think, is this living up to the expectation of what people expect?
I think every component there's that thought of, well, people like my tone, I hope they dig this too. But yeah, that's just a matter of how my ears have grown, and the work that I really started on Resolution. It's not that I was not worried about tone before that, but that's when me and the bassist from the ATB, Mike Dane, he was engineering those guitar tracks, where we really took the time and gave ourselves the latitude. It was handy because it was his studio, so it wasn't really costing us studio time per se. It just cost us our nervous systems and our days for months on end. But we were both driven in that, because once the decision was made, oh, it's just going to be one guitar track. I had that feeling of like, okay, I'm bored with all the regular guitar records and overdubs and rhythm this and double this. Let's just do that one guitar. Well, that one guitar better sound freaking amazing. So that's what led to a lot of that quest of just really trying as many things as we could, just to see, that sounds good. Well, are we going for good? It was like that, never settling, and that's the way to go. That's at the end of the day, to continue to improve that. So much of my early career was really, and not as a detriment, but I was concerned about the passion and the energy and the performance, let the engineer sort it out, right? And that's kind of the way we did some of those records. Not that I wasn't unconcerned about the tone, because that couldn't be further from the truth. But there was, like on Ear Ecstasy, there's a few tracks that were demos that were the little Zoom 9002 processor. I wasn't expecting it to be a kept solo. It's got an energy to it. I'll never be able to replicate it. So, you live with a demo too long, and it's a problem. But yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's just but I don't, the tone thing, I don't consider it as much of a pressure as I do just the performance, the really playing well. Obviously, that's the tone is baked in with all of it for me in my continual quest to just get it as good as I can.
But that's a really good point. When people ask me, I get this question a lot. People ask me for new music to listen to that's different from their usual, and I always recommend them to listen to your stuff. And when asked, oh, why listen to Andy Timmons, and I'll say, well, because there's something in the music that is beyond just the notes, and that is there's a meaning to the music. Like, for example, your track "Gone," 9/11, which is obviously about 9/11, which is, it conveys the emotion that people can't even put into words so well that it's, of course, that song is about 9/11. What else would it be about? It fits perfectly. Do you feel that when music has meaning, real purpose that inspired it, that's what gives it, I guess, the what would you say, makes it magical, makes it more than the sum of its parts, and therefore when we write music, we should really write about what we know or what we experience or what we see, much like writing a book. No, absolutely.
But then it's just in the matter of the ability of the writer and the player to convey that, the Gone piece literally happened on the day as it was happening. I was on a tour bus. I was on tour with Olivia Newton-John, and we were on the way from Miami to Atlanta on a day off that morning, and we were witnessing what everybody else did on CNN with, this thing unfolding. And then when those towers fell, I finally got a hold of my wife. She's at work. And we were talking about it. I just said, they're gone. The towers are just gone. Gone applies to a lot more than that, obviously, as far as the sense of safety in the country and all that. But in that moment, I was just kind of finding melodies and chords, just with a guitar in my hand. I always had some kind of guitar on the bus or a little practice unit or whatever. And I demoed it on my phone. I think I was traveling with a little cassette 4-track recorder and documented the tune, and that was it. It was never intended to be on a record or anything, but my bass player, I guess I played him the track, and my engineer, Rob Wexler, had heard it and says, man, we got to put that on the record. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. You know what I mean? It means something to me, and I needed that emotional outlet, but that is what music is for me. But I didn't want it to be misconstrued as, oh wow, okay, well, you're whatever people might think. But I'm so glad we did put it on the record, because it does resonate with folks, and especially when they. But that's the thing that you're getting to, Michael. I think that, you know, the written language and the spoken word is fairly finite. You know, what lyrics can you possibly write about that emotion that's really going to express what we felt worldwide, wherever you were? And that first chord of,
yeah,
that says most of it already. And so we stayed on the road. Olivia and the band, we had a decision to make. I would say probably 99% of every touring band went home. For good reason. We didn't know what else might happen. It was a very unsure time in this country. But I think we had maybe a couple of weeks left of dates, and between Olivia and us, we decided, you know what, people need this. Let's stay out here. So my days are going to be mixed up because I don't remember. I guess we can go back to a calendar to find out. But it seems like it was a Sunday morning. But one of our next gigs was in Long Island, New York. And we had a day off in Manhattan. We were staying in Midtown. And I remember driving up the New Jersey Turnpike that's on the west side of the Manhattan Island. And there's the new skyline. And there's still smoke coming up. This is just a few days after. And we drove through the Lincoln Tunnel or the Holland Tunnel underneath the Hudson, and then into New York. And two things: the smell that was in the air from the smoke, and never forget that. But also there was, in every church there were funerals and there were bells ringing, and it sounded exactly like that. Those bells, and that's what I heard. It's just deep. But so, to stay on track and to get to your point, that I think that instrumental music, because we're not confined by the written language and the spoken word and whatever you want to call language, it can go a lot deeper. And it can be up to the listener to mean what they need it to mean. I'm telling you, you might know that, this song was written on 9/11. Oh, my cat passed away, and this is what this. But the listener can take it and it can mean whatever they need it to mean, whether it's what it means to me or not. It doesn't matter. It's what does it make them feel? What are they relating it to? Maybe they heard it at a time in their life that is a happy time or a sad time, and it can take them to that place if they need to be there. But that is truly the beauty and the potential, I think, of well written and well played instrumental music.